Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, so I've done this little video, inshallah, to try and talk about a few ideas or thoughts that I had, and I wanted to sort of tell you about them. Now, basically, why did I create this video? There was a period where Abba had passed away when I was 5, long time ago, and Amma passed away when I was in my 20s. And I mean, at the time, I kind of didn't know where I was going in terms of my direction. And looking back, I feel like these kind of questions about what I should be doing and what is the pursuit that I should follow, and these kinds of questions, I felt like I guess I needed advice. So then I had this thought kind of most recently about why don't I kind of do this recording as if it's like my voice or my advice from the future, to try and give you some thoughts that would have helped me, all those years ago. So I think the first question is to look into this idea of guidance. And obviously I'm going to get one ayah that I'll get from the Qur'an, and I'll explain why I think it's important to start with this one. So it's from surah al-Mulk, and it's verse number 2. Now, Surah Mulk is often translated or is called the dominion or sovereignty, and somebody's translated it as the kingdom. But I think sovereignty is probably the best translation. So the idea of sovereign is, that question of who is in control, who is, if you like, the ruler, who is sovereign. And in the second verse or ayah, it goes something like this.
الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا وهو العزيز الغفور.
He is the one who created death and life in order to test which of you is best in deeds, and he is the Almighty, all forgiving. And just wanted to mention one or two kind of key things that struck me reading this. Is we begin with, obviously, he is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the one who, and the verse technically begins with, who created death and life. So we have death, maut, and life, hayat, in order to test which of you is best. So the word for best is ahsan, and the thing is, from this word ahsan, it's kind of going to be linked to something I'll talk about another time, which is the idea of ihsan, which is like excellence. So that's why you can see the meaning here is best. But the best in what? Well, it's the best in deed. And deeds in Arabic is amal. What is being said here? Well, first of all, you've got death and life, which is all about existence, right? So we are born, but we know that we're going to die. So it's having that realization that, and it should be making you ask the question of, why am I even here? Why am I alive? And then it tells us the answer by talking about in order to test. So therefore, life is a test. And the reason why this is important is because we may feel, especially when we're young, that life is a game. So the Quran is telling us that there's, in a way, two ways of thinking about life. Is it a game or is it a test? Because if it's a game, then the objective is just to have fun. And or you could argue it's just to try to win. score points and win. And then usually in our minds, what that means is get as much money. That's like getting the points, and then you win. Okay, so it's a very worldly focus. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not saying life is a game where it's all about fun. The reality is life is a test. And remember, the surah begins with the idea of life and death. So death has to be mentioned. Death has to be, we have to be aware of it, just like we are aware of our life, but are we aware of our coming death? The death is looming. So life is a game. And then it moves on to the last part, which is which of you is best indeed. Um, so this idea of what is best is asking the question, what is good? Okay. Now, is it our culture? Is that where we decide what is good? So our culture, how we were raised, is to tell us what is good. But if that's the case, then how can you work out um, when you look at other cultures? Are we saying every other culture is wrong and we're right? So this takes us down one road. Another idea is it's what we think. So what I think is right, and what I think is wrong is wrong. So it's very personal, and using my own mind. So that's another way of doing it. But the problem here is, what if somebody else thinks that what I believe is right is wrong, right? Um, so how do you make sense of that? There is a third one, which is, shouldn't it not be what the creator thinks is right, and what the creator thinks is wrong, is wrong? So do you see you've got one idea which is culture, another idea which is what we think for ourselves, and then the third one is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us through revelation, as well as obviously his the guides that he has sent, which we would call them, the prophets and messengers. And the last thing is the idea of deeds. So we tend to do actions, right? In fact, actions can be broken into thoughts. So what are we thinking? That leads to speech. What are we saying? And that leads to actions. What are we doing? So the point is, if life is a test, then all our actions matter, all our words matter, perhaps even our thoughts matter. But really, in terms of the test, it's really going to be the speech and the actions that matter the most, that you'll be held accountable for, rather than the thoughts. But there is this idea that be mindful of how you are thinking, because the thoughts leads to words and actions. So my conclusion is that this religion is not a theoretical one. It's not just an idea. It's actually something you're supposed to practice, something you're supposed to do, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge us in what we are doing in this life. There is actually a test. And as we know, with every test, you have to prepare, because if you don't prepare, you're preparing to fail. Okay? If you're failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. So I hope this was of benefit, inshallah. And what I'll do is I'll try and do a different topic, inshallah, focus on maybe one ayah or one hadith next time. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.